As we gather today on this Passion Sunday, Palm Sunday, an opportunity as we move into this Holy Week. We have throughout this Lenten season spent time with the prodigal son. We have spent time with the woman caught in adultery. We take this time to, again, reassess the direction in our life. I want to share this reading from Howard Zinn. Take a deep breath. Think about this Holy Week and the message that is waiting there for you. Today is not about simply remembering, it's not the reading I want. There it is. From Howard Zinn. To be hopeful in bad times is not just foolishly romantic. It is based on the fact that human history is a history not only of cruelty, but also of compassion, sacrifices, courage, and kindness. What we choose to emphasize in this complex history will determine our lives. If we see only the worst, it destroys our capacity to do something. If we remember those times and places, and there are many, where people have behaved magnificently, this gives us the energy to act and at least the possibility of sending this spinning top of a world in a different direction. And if we do act in however small a way, we don't have to wait for some grand utopian future. The future is an infinite succession of presents. And to live now as we think human beings should live, in defiance of all that is bad around us, is itself a marvelous victory. Today is not simply about remembering a procession that occurred in the dusty, crowded streets of Jerusalem over 2,000 years ago. To be a modern-day disciple, a follower of Christ, is to be a lifelong learner and to be willing and courageous and to bring the meaning, the very essence of this passion story that we are about to hear, to bring it into our modern day, into the dusty and crowded streets of our life today. Holy Week invites us to consider our own experiences of conflict and political turmoil, to consider once again how we make choices to either be a part of the problem or how we choose to be a part of the solution, or worse yet, how we make no choice and simply remain indifferent. Some time ago, and you're not going to see them now, you will see them once the altar is dressed. Some time ago I asked that one candle be burning and one candle not be burning on our altar until the children who were separated from their families at the border would be returned. One candle burning for hope, one candle not burning. This again is a sad reminder of the injustice that continues on. This is but one example. These children remain separated. The latest that I have seen from the government is actually we're not entirely sure where these children are. There were more than we thought, and it may actually be entirely too complicated and impossible to ever really figure out. All governments, all churches, all human beings have shown throughout history the ability to choose love or to choose hate, to choose justice or to choose oppression, to choose peace or to wage war. We all meet on this Palm Sunday and every day. We meet in the same intersection in today's world, just as was true when Jesus made his choice to lean into the pain and process into Jerusalem. I close with this brief reading from Desmond Tutu. God has a dream. If you are to be true partners with God in the transformation of this world, you must begin by understanding that as much as you love God, God equally loves your enemy. God does not share our hatred. No matter what the offense we have endured, we try to claim God for ourselves and for our cause. But God's love is too great to be confined to any one side of a conflict or to any one religion. And our prejudices, regardless of whether they are based on religion, race, nationality, gender, sexual orientation, or absolutely anything else, are indeed absolutely and utterly ridiculous in God's eyes. Today, we follow Jesus' path to Jerusalem and the conflict with the oppressive powers that led to his death. The Palm Sunday Passion will be dramatically presented by 9 of our parishioners, our musicians, the St. Joan of Arc Choir, and our dear friend and brother, Robert Robinson, will join as we begin this most holy week. Thank you.
It was 2 days before the Passover. The religious leaders who collaborated with the Roman occupation were conspiring against Jesus. One of the 12, named Judas Iscariot, went to the chief priest and asked,
"What will you give me if I deliver Jesus to you?"
When they heard the offer, they were glad and promised Judas 30 pieces of silver. From that hour, he sought an opportunity to betray Jesus. At the beginning of the feast, when the Passover lamb was sacrificed, the disciples of Jesus prepared the Passover meal in a large upper room. When it grew dark, Jesus arrived with the 12. While they were eating, he said,
"I tell you, one of you is going to betray me."
The disciples were stunned with grief and began to protest one after the other.
"Surely not I."
Nor I.
Nor I.
Nor I.
The betrayer is one of you dipping his hand in the dish with me. The Son of Man is fulfilling Scripture, but woe to that person through whom the Son of Man is betrayed.
Judas slipped out into the night. As they began to eat, Jesus took bread. After reciting the blessing, he broke it and gave it to his disciples.
This is my body, broken for you. This is my blood of the new covenant, which is being shed for many. I tell you, I shall not drink again from the fruit of the vine until that day when I drink it fresh in the kingdom of God.
They sang together and left the city for the Mount of Olives. As they walked, Jesus said to his disciples,
Tonight you will all desert me. So it is written by the prophet, strike the shepherd, and the sheep shall be scattered.
Peter replied,
Though all desert you, I will remain.
I tell you, this very night before the cock crows twice, you will deny me 3 times.
Though I must die with you, I will never deny you.
I will never deny you.
Jesus halted at an olive grove called Gethsemane, and then going apart from Peter, James, and John, he fell to the ground in anguished prayer.
Who is this man? Why do they follow me? I want to know, Father, what do you want from me? Please let this pass. If there's no other way, thy will be done.
Jesus turned to the three on watch and found them sleeping.
Could you not watch with me for just 1 hour? Watch and pray that you are not put to the test. For the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak.
Again, Jesus went apart in troubled prayer, and again he returned to find the disciples sleeping. A third time, Jesus withdrew to pray, and a third time found them sleeping.
Sleep on and finish your rest. Now is the time for the Son of Man to be delivered into the hands of sinners. Thus comes my betrayer.
Jesus had not finished speaking before Judas, one of his own disciples, arrived with a group of armed men from the temple. Now, Judas had arranged with the authorities for a sign.
The man whom I kiss is the one you want.
In accord with this arrangement, Judas went directly to Jesus
Greetings, Master.
and kissed him.
Judas, would you betray me with a kiss?
Immediately, the soldiers laid hands on Jesus and held him fast. Then one of the disciples drew his sword and cut off an ear from the slave of the high priest.
Release your sword. All who take up the sword will perish by the sword. Do you not know that I can call upon God, who will respond at once with more than 12 legions of angels?
Then turning to the mob,
Am I a criminal that you come armed with swords and clubs? Why did you not seize me in the temple where I sat teaching by day? Nevertheless, your actions are fulfilling the words of the prophets.
at which all of his disciples abandoned him and fled. Those who had seized Jesus brought him to Caiaphas, whom the Romans had made high priest. Caiaphas had gathered his council, and they began to arrange the case against Jesus, that he claimed to be king of the Jews. Two came forward who testified.
We heard this man say,
I will tear down this temple made with hands, and within 3 days build another.
Caiaphas stood up and examined Jesus directly.
Have you no answer to these charges?
Jesus remained silent.
Are you the anointed one, the Son of the Blessed?
I am. You shall see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of power and coming in the clouds of heaven.
What need have we of witnesses? He has condemned himself.
All concurred that Jesus was indeed worthy of death. Those holding Jesus began to spit on him. They covered his face and struck him as they taunted.
Oh, anointed one.
play the prophet for us, Messiah.
Now Peter, who had followed at a distance, was warming himself in the courtyard where a small slave girl confronted him about this Jesus.
Who is this man?
I do not know him.
The cock crowed. Peter went outside to the gate. The slave girl followed.
Who is this man?
I do not know him.
Then why do you follow him? I want to know.
I do not know him.
The cock crowed for a second time. Peter remembered how Jesus had said to him,
Before the cock crows twice, you will deny me 3 times.
Peter began to weep. At daybreak, the chief priest delivered Jesus over to Pontius Pilate, the imperial Roman governor. When Judas saw what had happened, he knew that Jesus was doomed, and he repented. He returned the 30 pieces of silver to the chief priest and confessed.
I have sinned in betraying innocent blood.
What is that to us?
That is your affair.
Judas threw down the 30 pieces of silver in the temple. He then went out and hanged himself. Jesus was taken to Pilate, where the accusers made their charge.
We found this man subverting our nation.
He was forbidding us to pay taxes to the emperor and proclaiming himself the anointed king.
Pilate questioned.
Are you the king of the Jews?
You say I am.
Have you no answer to give? Look at the accusations they are making against you.
Jesus remained silent. There was a notorious rebel in prison. His name was Barabbas. Pilate was accustomed to releasing a single prisoner at festival time, and some were urging him to do so.
Whom do you want me to release to you? Barabbas or Jesus the Anointed One?
Barabbas.
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 What shall I do then with Jesus the Anointed One?
Crucify him.
Crucify him.
Are you certain of his guilt?
Crucify him.
Shall I crucify your king?
We have no king but Caesar.
Pilate agreed to release Barabbas, but Jesus was handed over to his soldiers for crucifixion. The soldiers led Jesus away. They clothed him in royal purple. They set a crown of thorns upon his head and shoved a reed between his fingers for a scepter. They began to mock him. Hail, King of the Jews. They brought Jesus to a place called Golgotha, meaning skull place, where they crucified him. The time was midday. They offered him wine mingled with gall, but he refused to drink. They divided his garments amongst themselves, casting lots for them. And over his head they inscribed the charge against him, King of the Jews. Those who passed by jeered.
He saved others, but he cannot save himself.
Come down from the cross.
Save yourself.
Let God rescue him.
Now, there were two thieves crucified along with him, one to his right, one to his left. One of them derided him.
Are you not the Messiah? Save yourself and us as well.
The other rebuked him, saying,
Do you not fear God? Here we are, condemned equally. We are getting what we deserve for our deeds, yet this man has done nothing wrong.
He then said,
Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom.
Truly, I tell you, today you will be with me in paradise.
Many women were present looking on from a distance. They had followed Jesus from Galilee. Mary Magdalene was there, and Mary, the mother of James and Joseph, and the mother of the sons of Zebedee. Now from noon onward, there was darkness over the whole land until 3 p.m. And at that hour, Jesus cried out,
My God, why have you forsaken me?
Look, he's invoking Elijah.
I am thirsty.
One of the soldiers put a sponge full of vinegar on a stick and put it to his lips. Then Jesus gave up his spirit. Suddenly the earth shook, and the rocks were split. Even the tombs of the dead were opened. When the centurion on watch and the others who were with him saw all that was taking place, they were filled with awe.
Truly, this was the Son of God.
When evening fell, Joseph, a wealthy man from Arimathea, arrived. Taking the body, Joseph wrapped it in fresh linen and laid it in his own new tomb, which had been hewn from a formation of rock. Then he rolled a huge stone across the entrance of the tomb, and he went away. But Mary Magdalene, Mary, the mother of Jesus, and I remained sitting there facing the tomb.
Soon come the great tribulation and wars that will rage and not cease till the God of all nations shall bring in the day of peace. The sky will be darkened, the heavens will shake, the stars will be falling, the dead shall awake when the day of our God shall come to pass. The sky will ring out with the angels' song. The last shall be first, and the first shall be last, when the day of our God dawns, the wondrous day of our God. Short is the time of your sorrow, and great are the joys God has planned to give you tomorrow into the promised land, where justice will flourish and peace will abound, and mercy will nourish. The lost shall be found. Now your sorrow and weeping, stand firm, for your deliverance is near. God is not sleeping. Stand firm and do not fear, for behold, your salvation is now close at hand. The hope of each nation, the prayer of each land. Shall come to pass. The sky shall ring out with the angels' song. The last shall be first, and the first shall be the signs God has sent. For soon comes the morning, the night is now nearly spent. And you who are greedy, you who rob from the poor, you who prey on the needy, you who hunger for more, you would trample the helpless, you would trample the small, you would make them the outcast, you would banish them all, and you who love power, the